call the meeting to order. Before we get started, let's introduce everyone on this meeting. I am Sandy Brock. When I call your name, please confirm you can hear me by verifying you're present. Jonathan.
I am here.
And Patrick.
Here.
Okay, we are expecting one more member tonight, Betsy, but she's not here yet, so we'll see if she attends. Staff, Leah.
I'm here.
And Jan.
I'm here.
And then we have 3 speakers for 100 Westboro Road. If you want to, just the 3 of you take turns, starting with Matt, just to say that you're here. You can hear me.
Here.
I can hear you, Mark.
I'm here as well. I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm going to try this. And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me. I'm going to do my best. Isek.
Essek. And I can
Essek.
hear you fine.
Wrong accent. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. This open meeting of the Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely via Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order as extended on June 15th, 2021. With the governor's signing of the Senate Bill number 2475, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are speaking. And let me just adjust my cat.
What's your
Sorry.
cat's name?
That's Max, and he likes to make an appearance every
Max.
meeting. Everyone on the call knows him. That sees him every week. I'll go back. Okay. Access information for the public has been provided on the town website. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If you're using a dial-in by telephone feature, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. As chair, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please note you will not have screen sharing privileges, but staff can display any visuals per your queue. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will invite each commissioner by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. After the commissioners have spoken, I will allow public comments to be spoken by participants. Participants must use the raise hand feature by clicking the hand icon at the bottom right of the Zoom menu to indicate that we'd like to speak. If you're using a dial-in by telephone feature, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute when you are called on. Participants who raise their hand will be recognized one at a time by their name and then will be promoted to speak. Public comments will be followed by commission and applicant responses. Finally, each vote taken will be conducted by a roll call vote. As a reminder, the commission is concerned with state and town wetlands and stormwater regulations. Concerns outside of this purview need to be addressed to the appropriate boards. For example, road conditions must be addressed with the select board, and traffic concerns must be addressed with the planning board. Having said that, let's get to the agenda. So no public hearings tonight, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we do have a couple action items. Since we have some folks here for the minor change on 100 Westboro Road, why don't we take that one up first? And who's going to be speaking first on that?
I'll take a shot at that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say good evening. Just wanted to thank you all for your time tonight. My name is Mark Mastriani, and I'm here with Essek Petrie, and we're with Pulte Homes of New England. Pulte is a local residential builder developer, and our office is located right down the street in the next town over in Westboro. And we're excited to have an opportunity to work in Grafton again. We've built some projects here quite a few years ago, but nevertheless, we're pretty excited to be here again working in Grafton. So as detailed in our February 3rd, 2022 letter that we submitted to the commission, we're here tonight because we're partnering up with Dominic Alfonso and his team to build out the residential component of the mixed-use development called Alfonso Village. Alfonso Village is located oh, I just messed up. Alfonso Village is located right on Westboro Road and Institute Road. An order of conditions was granted by this commission, as well as a stormwater permit and a local wetlands permit. It was issued fairly recently and the end of July 29th of 2020. So our agreement with Dominic and his team is predicated on making certain modifications to the plan to kind of better align with Pulte's development program, a development program that we've built successfully, here in this market, often, recently, currently. So we're here tonight to present the changes to the commission. We were hoping to get some feedback from you all, and also we're certainly here able to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure.
And then and also maybe get some guidance from you on the best way to capture the commission's review and hopefully approval of the modified plans or modifications.
Okay.
That I'd like to turn it over to Matt Leidner, who's also here with us tonight. Matt's he's our project engineer on the group from Civil Design Group. So if it's okay, Matt's prepared to kind of run through the modifications with you all.
Sure, that would be fine. One quick question. You are associated with the national firm Pulte? Okay.
Pulte Group is the national home builder, based out of Atlanta, publicly traded company. And Pulte Homes of New England is our local division right here in Westboro that both Essex and I work out of.
Okay, fine. Please go ahead, Matt, and do your presentation.
Great, thank you. Good evening, members of the commission. Matt Leiden with Civil Design Group, civil engineer representing Pulte. I think I heard in the intro that I don't have the ability to share my screen. However, staff can share. Is that correct?
That's correct. Go ahead, Leah.
Could
Whatever you want to show, just let Leah know and she'll show it for you.
Okay.
Or Jan or whoever has control.
Okay, perfect. So, right, I can see that. Do I have the ability to move my cursor around on this and take control or no?
No.
Okay, all right, no problem. I just want to understand the parameters here. So, all right, so this is perfect. This is the plan that I was hoping to pull up first. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through this as efficiently as possible and just go plan by plan. So this plan here is what was approved by the Conservation Commission via order of conditions under the State Act, the local order of conditions, and stormwater permit. And so what was approved, as you can see here, so just to get our bearings here, Westboro Road is up along the top of the page, running horizontally. Institute Road is on the right side, running more or less vertically. North is up on this plan. So what was approved on this roughly 16-acre tract of land was a mixed-use project consisting of approximately 18,000 square feet of commercial space, which was in the two buildings that are closest to Westboro Road toward the top of the page, and then 105 residential units. And those were contained in partially within the buildings up toward Westboro Road, and then the buildings that are down farther on the page. There's three buildings kind of aligned horizontally, and then a group of townhomes over toward Institute Road. So, so again, 18,000 square feet of commercial space and 105 units. Only a small part of this site is within the 100-foot buffer zone. So if you look on the left side of the page there, there's some wetlands, sort of the middle of the left side. And I can see the call out says wetlands flagged by Goddard Consulting. And the associated 100-foot buffer zone is the outermost line that parallels that wetland line. And as you can see, not much of the development portion of the project of the site is within that 100-foot buffer. It does clip some of the development, some pavement, some parking, and predominantly what's in that 100-foot buffer in the proposed plan is a portion of the stormwater basin in the lower left corner of the site. And so the proposal, and if I could ask Leah or staff to go to that next plan. So this is a comparison plan which shows in black what was approved and we're not proposing to change or modify. The red is what was approved and we are proposing to modify, and the green is the proposed modification. So I'll kind of walk through that. And again, as I go through this, keep in mind the wetlands are over on the west side, the left side there. You can see the buffer zones associated with them. So almost nothing that I'm going to talk about here is in the 100-foot buffer zone, but it's part of the project, and you know the project was what was the subject of the approval. So the proposal here is to, well, let me start off by saying the proposal is not to change the quantity of commercial space, 18,000 square feet, or the number of residential units, 105 units. That is what was approved, and that is what is proposed here. So there's no change in the number of units or commercial space. However, what we are proposing to change is the configuration of the buildings and that space and those units within the buildings. And so just to walk through it, the buildings closest to Westboro Road on top of the page, you'll see they're black on this plan, which means no change. So horizontally, we're not proposing any changes to those buildings. What we are proposing, though, is those buildings on the approved plan had some residential units on the upper floors. We're proposing to take those out of those buildings, just have those be commercial on the first floor, which is what was approved, but move the residential units over to the south side of the project and consolidate them into the other buildings on the south side of the project. We're also proposing to consolidate the 3 apartment buildings that were on the approved plan into 2 buildings. What I think is important to say here is that the buildings we are proposing are 4-story buildings, where the residential buildings, that is, the ones on the south side, are 4-story, where the approved buildings were 3-story buildings. 4 stories allowed by zoning. And what that does in the context of wetlands and conservation, stormwater runoff, is it consolidates the same number of units in a smaller footprint, smaller impervious footprint. Furthermore, we are proposing to take some of the parking that is associated with the residential use, which was all surface parking on the approved plan. And we're proposing to take some of that parking and put it underneath those buildings, those 2 buildings. So the result, by going 1 story taller and taking some of the parking that was surface parking and putting it under those buildings, is a net reduction of impervious area in the proposed modification. So we still do have surface parking. I don't want to misrepresent that, but it is fewer surface spaces than what was approved, because we are putting some of that parking underground. If we could go to so this is a rendering of the proposed modified plan. And so what I'll point out on here is we talked about the reduction in impervious. So almost a half an acre less impervious of runoff generated from the impervious that would be flowing to the wetlands. So the wetlands, as you can see in the blue on this plan, it's all toward the west end of the site. So the water on the approved plan, and what would also be proposed here, is the water would be collected from the buildings, the parking, the landscaped areas, and be treated and then routed through that stormwater basin on the bottom left corner, that dark green shaded area, mitigated peak flow and then discharge, the overflow discharge toward the wetland. So we're proposing to not change that stormwater basin at all. So again, what and I think I'd mentioned this early on, the bulk of the work on this plan that is within the 100-foot buffer zone is that stormwater basin. We're not proposing to change that at all. So we have slightly less water going to that basin. So if anything, the design may be slightly more conservative, which is a good thing. But we're not proposing to change anything about that basin that was approved in that location. If I could ask staff to go back to the comparison plan, one sheet up. If you'll notice on the proposed modified plan, the green, the townhomes are placed on the west side, the left side of the plan, and the taller multifamily buildings are on the east side. That was sort of opposite of what was approved. So the townhomes on the approved plan in red, you can see they're in the upper right corner, close to Institute Road. So the difference that makes in the context of wetlands, potential wetland impacts is we're putting a less intensive use closer to the wetlands. So we're kind of flip-flopping it. As you can see on this plan here, what was approved, all that red where the green townhomes are, that was all parking. Some of that parking, a very small component of it, was within the 100-foot buffer. And much of it was outside, but close to the 100-foot buffer. So we're in this in this proposed modification, there's a less intensive use adjacent to the wetlands, and there's less impervious in that immediate area. So the impervious is more focused toward the east side, a little bit farther away from the wetlands. There's under the proposed modification, there would be no parking at all in the 100-foot buffer zone, whereas there was some in the approved plan. And as I mentioned, you can see on here, the stormwater basin is outlined in black because we're not proposing to touch that. So if anything, it will be slightly over-designed in the modified plan. And so that's really a summary of the proposed change. So these plans here are they're somewhat conceptual in nature. They're survey based. They're atop the approved plans. We are in the process of generating a full design plan set based on these modifications, and so part of what we'd like to hopefully get tonight is some feedback from the commission as to any questions or concerns or comments relative to the proposed changes, and then hopefully get more of an understanding of what the process to move forward with these changes would be with the Conservation Commission, based on the approvals. Any modification of the approved plans needs to come before the commission for a determination whether they rise to the level of an amended order or they are just not substantially impactful to the wetlands, and perhaps just an approval that is sort of just goes into the files and is approved in that manner. So we're looking for an understanding so we can move these changes forward with the commission of what that process would entail. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on Mark or Essek if you have anything further to add.
Yeah, so I appreciate the comparison plan because that's very helpful. I just also remember we're not only issuing the order of conditions, we're also issuing a stormwater permit. So this plan really, yes, there's a portion of it that is jurisdictional for the wetlands, but there's also the entire site that's jurisdictional under the stormwater permit. So that's to me is what we're probably going to focus on. Appreciate that it's a more efficient layout. The fact that parking has been moved to under the buildings, that really helps to provide some additional buffer to the wetlands. So I think this is somewhat of a kind of paperwork type of thing. So my first question is, previously G&H had done the stamp plans. What I'm understanding is that we're going to get a new set of plans by a new engineer. Okay. And then some of these are more just logistics, like, previously this was submitted by a different applicant. So we want to make sure that we just have the paperwork that what you're submitting is, approved by the existing owner. And then probably the biggest thing that I'm looking at that we don't see right at the moment, which we'll get, is the grading behind the townhouses. Previously, there was a large retaining wall there. You now have a connection between the subdivision and this development. So I don't think any of these are issues. Is we just need to look at it. The previous stormwater management system was reviewed by a peer reviewer. And even though, yes, you're being conservative by not altering the basin, you are really altering the rest of the site. I don't think it's a big leap. You're going to be collecting it and routing it through different treatment facilities or treatment structures. You may want to add a bioretention or some other type of feature. I mean, I don't have any issue with that. So, but I think we do need to have that reviewed because you're going to redo it. I don't think it's the same level as the first review because there is a reduction. I think it's more just to make sure that once the utility and drainage plans are completed, that they're just, from an engineering standard, meet standards. I mean, I don't think there's anything specific that we're going to require. We also want to make sure that the new set of plans get sent to DEP. Also just to understand, as far as erosion control, who's going to be responsible for that. It's more about who's doing it. The other thing is that, and I can't remember, and I can't tell from these plans, I thought a portion of the runoff from the subdivision was going down to that basin. So if that's
Still
the
the
case,
case.
still the case. And again, that's not an issue to me. It's just like, if there's going to be different ownership at the end of the day, appropriate easements have to be put in place. So really what we're talking about is kind of the nuts and bolts of getting everything kind of documented and so forth. Having now this is going back in front of planning board, my take is correct. And then
Correct.
they're going to have a peer review. We use the same peer reviewer, so we should be able to make that efficient. So, so from a big picture, more efficient layout, less pervious, but then again, you're going to have a little bit bigger buffer areas to the wetlands than what was shown in the previous plan. And my big thing is what's the grading behind those townhouses? You have an opportunity to, I don't know what you're going to do with it, whether it'll be walkouts or whatever. I mean, that's up to you guys, but there's opportunities there to have it fit with the landscape a little bit better. And I also, because I can't see any grading, the elevation change between the subdivision in this particular new layout, is there any issues with that connector? Is that, and again, we're not going to go into layouts and stuff like that. That's not our purview. The stormwater is, and that's really what we're more concerned with, to make sure there's nothing being created, and to make sure that all the appropriate easements or permissions or whatever the relationship is going to be between your firm and the existing owner and what's going on with the subdivision. We don't create an issue because that basin is doing double duty. So those are the type of things that I see as that needs to be reviewed and cleaned up. I don't think it's a big hurdle. I kind of like when people come in with more efficient designs and provide more, actually reduce impervious area. I think that's a good thing. I got no complaints there. Gives you an opportunity to, look at your landscape and what you're doing with that. And again, without the grading, there's some areas that we would just have questions. And again, you're reducing the footprint of your development. So all that grading should become, less severe, i.e., maybe you don't need a retaining wall.
Man,
Yep.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to, if I may just respond very briefly. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. So I realize that in what we've submitted, there's no grading, so you're looking at a two-dimensional sketch. But what I can tell you is that when you do see the full design plan with the grading, including the grading plan, that has all been taken into account, and that's actually one of the reasons why we shifted the townhomes over to that area. We're able to eliminate a whole section of wall in that area because the townhomes will be walkout townhomes, work much more in harmony with the grades than the other layout, which fought the grades a little bit more. So we will be eliminating a whole section of wall. There will still be a section of wall associated in the commercial area, which was on the approved plan, but a whole section will be able to be removed. And now with the connection to the single family development, which thank you for pointing that out. I had meant to in my presentation, which is something new on this plan, which was not proposed previously. We've looked at the grading, so we have the design plans, the approved plans for that single family development as well, all the road profiles and grading. And so all the design grades on this mixed use site tie in very nicely with that single family. And you will see all that on the full set, the grading plan, including the grading plans that we submit. So I understand we're not looking at them right now, but I just wanted to give you some sense that has all been looked at, and what you will see, and I believe you will feel is a better scenario as far as grading than what was approved.
I mean, just looking at the 2D plan, I can tell that those townhouses give you more opportunity for flexibility of grading. I get it. I totally understand why you're doing this. And I think I have no objection to this change at all. I just want to make sure all the paperwork is done and that we cover certain things. And just because this is like a new relationship between you and the previous applicant, and there is a built-in, a connection between this development and the single family. And we had talked about as far as, how it's going to be developed, how it's going to be built. We typically don't like to see more than 5 acres opened up at one time for this kind of commercial area. Those are just things that we just want to have worked out. I think they're fairly minor, and I think they're all fairly easy and will be addressed in your permits and your new plans, I should say. So for me to try to give this, and I should, before I give my opinion, let me check in with the other commissioners just to see if they have other questions. So Patrick, got any other questions you have?
No, I think any questions I had starting off were kind of answered as you went along. So appreciate the presentation.
Jonathan.
I'm in the same boat. No
Okay.
questions.
So yeah, so it's one of, I think this is positive. We've got no doubt about it. And but I think for our responsibility in the amount of change, I think this could be just to go through and present your revised plans at a public hearing without having to do a new notice of intent, and just so that if there is any abutters that have any comments, this is going to look really different. Kind of first responsibility is to the citizens of Grafton, give them the opportunity. This isn't just changing one parking lot or something. This is flipping everything around. It's a good flip. Got no problem with it just to do that. And I think if you're going through the planning board and you're getting a peer review and they're doing a peer review on stormwater, we can use that same peer review. I would agree with you. There's less impacts to the wetlands. We just want to make sure the stormwater is taken care of, and let's do it in an efficient way through the peer review. So
May I ask what specifically would we be asking the Conservation Commission for? So we'd like to, so we understand there'll be another submission of a more complete or a complete design plan. Yep. We want to make the process, of course, as efficient as possible. So in order to not lose, a hearing, 2 weeks or whatever, what would we are we asking for consideration of what are we going to a public meeting and asking for?
Yes. So
determine what this plan would entail in terms of any approval?
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with the other commissioners. So basically, you know, the three levels. There's a minor change where you're doing, you know, where it's at an administrative kind of decision, and we would have done it at this meeting. The next step up is just to have a public hearing, have a very similar discussion, but now we have the full set of plans. And then, of course, the third option would be to require you to do a full new notice of intent. I don't personally think you need a new notice of intent. I'll check with the other commissioners. I think just having it in a public hearing is probably appropriate only because of the amount of changes that's happening on this plan. We're having a whole new set of plans done by a different engineer. I mean, that's part of the whole thing. So it'll get that all documented. It'll be done through a public process. And then, you know, then we would do an amendment to the order is
Okay.
what we would do.
So amended order conditions.
You got it. And it could be, and part of that amendment is to say, you know, take out this former set of plans and use this set of plans stamped by this person with this date on it. So
Okay.
that's just more of a paperwork type of thing. So that's kind of what I see as kind of the next steps. You know, as far as submittal of that, I would kind of defer to Leah as far as her schedule and so forth. I mean, we just have to get information in a certain period of time ahead of time. And
I think
then,
our approach, unless told otherwise, you know, would be to sort of parallel this process with the planning board process, especially
Yep.
since peer reviewer is kind of shared between the two boards and the board and the commission. So I think that would be our, you know, we'll talk internally here, but I think that's probably going to be our goal, is to kind of make them as parallel as possible.
and we certainly have no issue with that. We don't want you to do additional work, but you know, it's pretty substantial change in the layout. It's actually reduction of developed area, but it's still, you know, and it should get looked at. So,
I understand completely what you're saying. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Jonathan, any kind of other comments or any different approaches to whether it's a minor or if you need a amended order?
It sounds like it's pretty minor in our eyes, so.
But the difference is a minor, we could approve it tonight. And what I'm saying, it needs to have an amended order of conditions and have a public hearing.
Okay,
So it's still a reduction, but it's how much we look at it before we don't even have a set of plans to say that this is a minor change. To me, a minor change is you shift something or something moves a little bit. The whole development doesn't get rearranged.
okay. Well, then it sounds like we need a plan or more
Yep.
detail to review.
Right. And Patrick?
Yeah, I would agree that we should, that it's a little bit beyond a minor change. Even though it does seem like a net benefit and a positive change. It's a significant shift. And like you said, we're not looking at the plans yet. So we need to cross all the T's and all that stuff.
Sounds good. Welcome, Betsy.
Yep, sorry about that. I actually, my computer did a total upgrade while I was trying to log on, and then I couldn't get Zoom to launch, so my apologies. But
No problem. It's a different world we live in. I don't know, Leah, if you have anything else to say or anything else to add, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that with a request for an amended order needing a public hearing, we would be looking at March 15 because the deadline to get an ad to the paper for March 1 has passed.
Okay,
I just,
appreciate that.
if I could jump in, I don't think, you know, Matt has a lot of work to do and we want to make sure the engineering is correct and it is an updated plan set. So I don't think we'll be ready to be submitting for March 1st. I think we are targeting probably 30 days or so before we'll.
Okay.
be
Yeah,
ready.
feel free to reach out to Leah and get the submission dates so that you guys can,
That'd be
that's
good.
totally up to you.
If I could just say one thing too. First of all, I wanted to thank you for your comments. I think all of them are completely appropriate. And it's clear that you reviewed our submittal prior to this meeting and all of your comments are right on, and we will provide all of that information in the updated plans and in our submittal. I did want to share with you all, we didn't mention it at the beginning, but it has come up. So we do have an agreement with Alfonso to build the single family development as well.
Okay.
So we're really excited about that. And actually, probably at your next meeting or one of your next two meetings, we are planning on submitting to the commission. So we're getting ready for construction. And so we've taken the approved Village at Institute Road plans, and we're intending to build per the order of conditions and stormwater permit and wetland permit. And we're trying to understand everything there. And we're just finalizing our construction plans there, and we'd like to come back to the commission. We'll be just presenting the way we intend to sequence the project and build it out to run it by you all to make sure that we can get proper approvals. It's a little bit different than the way they had proposed it. So, but we're going to share that with you. But I just wanted to share with you all that we are working with Alfonso, and we do have both projects under control. So that will be a little bit more seamless when talking about easements and, maintenance of the stormwater pond and things like that.
Yeah, that's a little bit easier because that's the way it was set up before, and it's going to continue that way. Makes it easier. So, Leah, is there anything else that we need as far as like signatures or I'm thinking just pure paperwork and to make sure that we're all
I think
set.
you covered it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's really it and so forth. So, hey, I like your new layout. Makes sense to me. So,
Thank you.
right.
We really are.
Okay. And I live about 1.5 miles down the road and walk by that location all the time. So I'll keep a close eye out on when you guys start to construct. So, so why don't I just do a final round with the commissioners just to see if they have any other comments. So we're going to be seeing this again. Patrick, anything else to add?
No, nothing right now.
Okay. Jonathan?
Nothing to add.
Yeah. Betsy, I'm not sure exactly when you came in.
No, I didn't. I came in too late to have a comment that means anything.
Okay, that's great. You'll be able to see this again when they come back in front of us with the full documents. If you have any questions or need any answers on submission dates or anything else, both Leah and Jan are great, and you can just reach out to them. Do we have anyone, is there anyone, any participants online? Any of the public?
We have two, but I believe they are here for a discussion item.
Okay. And I'm just, allowing them, if they have any questions about that, they can ask. I mean, this is an action item and we're not in a public hearing, but if someone had a specific question, be happy to answer that. But if they're not here for that, it looks like you guys are all set. Do you have any last questions?
I do not. No,
All
it's
right.
very helpful.
All right.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much for your time.
Thanks all for your time.
All right.
All right, good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Have a good night.
Moving on to discussion items, Leah?
Sure. If you want to skip to the second one, Pell Farm Agriculture, I had an update there, and that's what I believe our two attendees are on for.
Okay.
So we had talked briefly about the potential to have a flower farm at Pell Farm, and you guys tasked me with digging into this and talking to town council and seeing if it could work, how it could work, and additional details. So I did look at the conservation restriction that's on Pell Farm, and I did find language that I sent to town council because it was a little bit, it seemed prohibitive to me. So I'll read that to you guys. So it's in the section that's talking about when we acquired Pell Farm, there were existing agricultural fields. So it's language setting up those fields to continue being used for the 10-year lease. Then it reads, at such time that the lease expires on February 27, 2019, the area currently in Christmas tree production will be allowed to return completely to an open early successional condition and maintained as open meadow. I sent that excerpt to town council, and she agreed that that is prohibitive of continuing with agriculture. She also pointed out that future agriculture isn't listed in the allowed activities section of the CR, and the way a CR works is if it isn't called out in the allowed section, it's assumed to be prohibited. So I wanted to bring that to you guys. We did get to relay that to Grace, and she had had a response back, and I was just hoping we could have a little bit more of a dialogue like last time.
Sure. Happy to do that. One quick question. Did town council give any indication? Is there any room to change a CR? I have no idea. I think they're pretty static.
I didn't, so she didn't specifically mention that, nor did I. I believe it is a pretty involved process.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking that what little I've been involved with on CRs is that they're not something that's easily updated, altered, or anything else.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Do you want to promote the folks that are here to discuss this so that we can?
Sure.
All right. So Grace and Paul, you both muted.
Hi,
Hi.
sorry. Thanks for having me. So, thanks for having me back, and thanks for taking the time to even discuss this. So my initial reaction to Leah's reply, one, I am disappointed, but this is sort of in a selfish way. But the more I thought about the whole land use at Pell Farm, I sort of am thinking the fact that the only reason agriculture might not be allowed in the future is because it wasn't explicitly stated in the CR. And the fact that if the answer is that if the process to change or edit the CR is involved or time consuming, or insert whatever adjective you want, is that a good enough answer to not to try to do something with the land that might sort of otherwise be most useful? Even if it's not to me, like at this point, I don't actually, initially sort of going on this fishing expedition, it was for my own use, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, it should be open to anyone to farm, knowing how hard it is to even secure farmland to farm, and the fact that this was a farm prior and is great farmland, you know, and perhaps doing the work, albeit it could be hard, it could be slow, you know, could it be possible? And in knowing that the land that I currently farm is under CR too, and in Upton, that the way we approach our CR on our current property is that it is a living document. Yeah, there are explicit rules and stuff that was written when the CR was made, but the people who made the CR are no longer the people on the conservation. So the intent, who really knows what the intent was, other than it being a document, and however the people that were on the board at that time that drafted the document, like what was the intent, other than they needed a document to get the land purchased in a way. So the way Upton and we've been doing it, and for us, is that it's a living document, in that, yeah, if someone can come with a plan, a justifiable plan, and explain to it, and have done their homework and explained that this is sort of what I want to do, this is how it's going to impact it. Is this something that the Concom might approve and consider it, perhaps? In terms of Pell Farm, I do know that it's a challenging piece of property even to maintain in the first place. So could it be that something creative could be done with the land so that it could help maintain it for future use? Because as I know now, it is sort of, it sometimes doesn't even get mowed because it's too challenging for DPW to mow it on a yearly basis. So I don't know, I'm just here to advocate for you know, a continued dive and exploration into this property, whether it's for me or for someone else. Because yeah, farmland is really, really difficult to find.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I was obviously an advocate of trying to do something here, because I like the idea of, you know, some of our, you know, open space or conservation land that were, especially with those that were previously a farm, that maybe some of that history in the town could be maintained. I think it's a good lesson for future CRs. About kind of the way CRs are written and having a better understanding of it, so that you have some flexibility. But in some ways, you know, CRs are written and, you know, the templates were all set up for specific reasons and so forth. But I appreciate, you know, kind of the suggestion. I mean, I'm curious. Like Leah, I'm curious if we could ask town council is, you know, what is, you know, the legal process if we wanted to amend something, and just to find out what it is, and not to say that we would or would not do it, but just sitting on the commission now, I'd like to know what that process is, because this is a good example of something I think that would be appropriate for this particular piece of land that right now we're being told by our legal counsel that it's not, is not allowed. So that I get, and I have no idea how long it takes. I don't know the case law on it. I don't know what kind of risk, you know, Upton went through, and what they, you know, if there's any risk there and what the decision they made. I don't know. Maybe their council had different opinions on it. I don't know any of that. But as Leah said, she didn't ask that question. She was asking, can we do it based on this document? We didn't ask about, you know, can you change it? And to be honest, if it's something that is costly to do, I don't think the town's gonna, you know, spend that money to do it. And I don't think that's your idea of using your money wisely, because there's a risk to that. But I would definitely like to know what it is. But it also tells me that if we have other parcels of land, we should be a little bit more forward thinking about uses and so forth. So I appreciate you know, calling in. I don't know if anyone else on the commission has any other kind of comments. Patrick?
No, I mean, nothing really at this point. I guess if we ever got to that point where we were going to consider it, I would want to consider what the intent of the land was when it was, I believe, purchased and maintained. beyond the agricultural aspect of it.
Yeah.
But
Jonathan?
I didn't have any comments at this time.
All right. And Betsy?
Well, I guess probably being the veteran resident of Grafton, so 32 years, Pell Farm meant a lot to my family and myself because that's where we went when Dick and Ginny Engbell were running their Christmas tree farm that was not up and ready for harvesting. So Pell Farm was the place we went to. And so I have an attachment to Pell Farm emotionally. The idea that it will just be open meadow to me is like, well, that's fine, but it's not Christmas trees and it's not active. So I would be open to exploring what it would take. But I also then think that there would be some bias in this because if we would be allowing, Grace to do flower farming there, then wouldn't there be other people running to the door to say, well, I didn't know we could do this because we had a very closed CR and I could have done a pumpkin farm there. I don't know what that would be, but I just feel like as much as I'm attached to that property having some value, I also think we're also opening up Pandora's box because then wouldn't it have to be an RFP of some sort to continue the use there, not like first come, first served basis, but there may be other people who would have had an interest in that if they knew that the CR was going to be reopened and flexible. That's my only comment. But I love the idea that the land could be used in the same way Pell Farm meant something.
Any
So-
other kind of, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, in thinking about this whole thing, I too agree that there is implicit bias. Yeah, maybe I'm the one that started it, but really, like, do I honestly think that just because I'm the first one to raise my hand, like that I should get it? Like, I am totally realistic in this whole endeavor. And the same way, like, I bought when we first moved to Upton, we went to Pell Farm to buy Christmas trees, and everyone sort of around here knows that, like, Old Pell Farm, and just considers it Old Pell Farm right now. And that's sort of when I was looking for land, it was the first thing that popped up into my head because we drive by it every single day. Like, if it was farmed in the past for hundreds, it's been farmland for a really, really long time. And the fact that it might just be open meadow somehow breaks my heart a little bit, because I know how hard it is to even find that land. And yeah, I would assume that if the CR was changed in a way, I think the only fair thing would be an RFP and really, I don't need 100 acres. Like, I probably can't maintain 100 acres by myself if that whole lot was put up to agricultural use. And in being in the farming community, I sort of know of different models to use that much land. It could be a cooperative farming model. It could be a community farm model. It could be a community farm with educational component model, but privately run by people who actually know how to run a farm model. There could be many creative uses of the land in agriculture. I mean, it could be, honestly, it could be trying to help young farmers who otherwise can't access farmland get away, like an incubator in some sort of way, so that people who can't afford farmland because it's too expensive for beginners to use could be an incubator area so that people can get a couple of years under their belts before they move on. There's so many things. I just think that perhaps exploring, if you guys are willing to ask and do that legwork would be most certainly welcome. And I know that it would definitely be a model for other towns or people looking to do something with the land. You know, so yeah, I appreciate even the conversation that's happening, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a question. I don't want to do false expectations. I'm certainly not an expert on any of this, but I kind of like the idea of the history of it and, you know, being good stewards of the land. And there's a lot of different ways to farm. And I think we'd have to be very intentional on what that type of farming would be, and to make it, you know, make it fit with our goals and so forth. So yeah, so I think what we'll do is, Leah, if we can just ask the question, we don't need a detailed something from our town council. We just need, like, give us a hint on, is this something that will take 5 years or something, just something, just a broad brush. I have no idea what it means. So,
Okay.
all right. No, thank you for coming back. Thank you for, you know, being so passionate about what you do. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I tried to get a hold of some of the members of Upton Concom, because we work really, like I said, we work pretty closely with them, since I currently farm on CR land. And they're not the greatest at answering emails on a last minute basis, like I assume, but I'm going to reach out again and see if they have any ideas on if they've changed CRs or what the process of perhaps changing a CR, just to, maybe there's a model for it, or maybe they might know something other people might not know. And I'll be sure to sort of share anything that I know that I get from them. Yeah, like we're sort of in the same boat here of trying to change some language in our CR. So this might be a great practice all around for that. So yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Don't stop
Thank you,
trying.
Grace. Yeah, thank you, Grace. I love your passion, so thank you.
Thanks.
All right. All right. Next up, Leah's, the only thing left is meeting minutes, or?
Meeting minutes and the open space plan.
Oh, okay. Any preference?
Nope.
Let's do meeting minutes. Quick, something quick to do. Does anyone have any comments or changes proposed? If not, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the February 1st meeting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
and Patrick.
Yes.
I am also yes. The motion carries. All right, open space plan.
Yeah, so you guys might remember a few meetings ago, we talked about the list of duties or actions, if you will, that the open space plan designated to fall under Concom. It was, I think, like 7 pages long in list form, and we were asked for feedback. The feedback we gave them was to ask them to give a little more level of detail on the priority level of things, because a lot said high priority, and then a lot said medium after that. And we were looking for a little more specificity from them. They have come back to say that they wanted to leave that kind of level of detail to whoever's charge they're putting these tasks under. So it would be up to us to figure out
Okay.
the priorities of things, but they did also turn the list of actions into an Excel workbook where we can give line by line feedback if we so choose or have it. So
Okay.
I sent that to you guys last week, I think,
Yep.
just so you could get a look at it maybe before tonight, but we do have one other meeting before the deadline of them asking for feedback. So we don't have to close the book on it tonight, but if anyone has any comments.
Yeah, I mean, I read through the list, and in kind of my take on it is that, and again, people can have, put out what they think, is that I think some of these they're all pretty good, but I would concentrate on the ones that more is more core to our goals and missions as a conservation commission, which would be more of the proactively monitor and audit existing conservation lands. And then there's one that talks about subcommittee, create trail subcommittee. I think that needs to be a little bit, that's something we've talked about in the past. And there's other things that go with that. But really, one thing that we're already doing, is review and update regulations, because both, you've been involved with kind of making sure that we align and so forth. And then it's really about things that core to supporting the protection of wetlands to me. But all of these items listed here, are worthy of doing. It's just how we kind of work on that. There's one of them here that talks about I just lost it again. Strengthen low impact development requirement language in town bylaws. That's going to get taken care of the new regulations for DEP. But I'm behind that. But yeah, that's going to happen kind of someplace else. What's the best way for the commissioners here to spend a relatively short amount of time to help you to kind of say, these are the things we'd like to prioritize?
So, Jan, can you pull up the sheet on the screen? I'm not sure they're looking for us to tell them the prioritization levels now. I think what they're just asking for now is, do we agree with having a role in these tasks, or do we think they should go to someone else? Or do we think we need the partnership of another entity that they have not listed? So I think they're just looking for feedback on, like, this is the list they think we should get. Do we agree we should get it? And then I think from there it becomes our own list to see through how we see fit.
Okay.
Well, that makes it better. Thanks for that clarification, because I was like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way. I mean, to me, you pick 3 of them, and that's what you concentrate. I mean, to me, it's like a strategic plan.
Yes.
You prioritize it. You pick a few things. I mean, some of the things are already started, and I think we should celebrate those things that we have done, and then, but also continue those that we have already started, and then maybe look at something else to, secure land along Civil Lake shoreline, et cetera, all the other kind of water bodies. I'm not sure if that's exactly what we should be doing, as opposed to protecting those resources. So those are things that you can kind of think about and talk about. And
so back to your question a minute ago of, like, how could you guys help? What's the easiest way? I think the main thing I'm looking for is, does anyone feel like there's anything on this list that just plain should not fall under us and we want to pass over to somebody else? Or if we feel like this is all appropriate and it's just, how soon we get to it or not, that's fine too.
So just off the top of when I'm glancing at it, I looked at this, I think a long time ago, maybe when I first started, but coordinate with the Historic Commission and other relevant organizations to help build awareness of the historical significance of Grafton's historical and cultural places. I don't think that's Conservation Commission.
So that would be kind of like not quarter Oz. And I don't think that, I don't know if we'd have a role in that. And so that's what we would put down for Leah so that we can, you know.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to sit and do that. And like, I work on paper. I'm a bad person, but I can't, my eyesight's not great with computers. So I would love to be able to just eyeball things and highlight the things that I think we should not include and focus
Okay.
on what Sandy's already said is what's more core to our mission. And you start straying and then it gets very messy and muddy, and we just, I think, and then just the overwhelming nature of the whole thing, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff here, and you'd be lucky if you could do a handful of these things in a fiscal year.
Okay.
That sounds good. Others, Patrick, Jonathan, as far as what your take on this is?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot here where we're in a supporting role, and that may look like, I would assume that might look like, having to weigh in on items that are primarily, say, the Historical Commission, but may have bits and pieces that we have a hand, or might touch bits and pieces that are more core to our mission. So
All right.
I guess my thought is to not just write that off too quickly on those things if we're just in a supporting role there. But otherwise, yeah, it makes sense to kind of go through this. And if, I was just noting the stuff on trails, and if there's any need for help with that, I'm happy to help with anything trails related also. That's all that I have on this.
Sounds good. Okay, so we know that we have one more meeting. So if people can kind of go through this and try to get Leah something next week so that you've got time to kind of compile it, because you're going to get it from each individual. And if your other demands in life don't allow you to do it, then don't worry about it, is kind of my take for the commissioners. So fact that you show up
Sandy-
here is good enough for me.
Thank you.
And just to note that there are 2 tabs on that sheet. There's other items.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a lot.
Thank you, because I had gone through the full list. I did not know there was a second tab. So,
There is another tab.
okay.
And that's just as long and robust as the first tab.
Gotcha.
Sandy, my question, and I'm sorry if I missed this in Leah in your email. I guess Leah, this could go to you as well. Are we picking things that we're going to lead or support, or is this a group effort that the commission as a whole is leading specific pieces of this? I'm sorry if I missed that.
So are you asking if it's down to individual commissioners? Is that what you're asking?
Correct. So if it's like, again, the trails, create a trails subcommittee via Conservation Commission, and its role is lead. Is that something that if Patrick's like, yeah, I really want to do this, like, would he lead that? Or is that something that we collectively, because again, I have interest in doing things like that, but there's, as Betsy said, there's a lot of stuff on this list. So
Yeah.
They're talking about the commission leading that project with
okay.
whoever they might list in the supporting, whatever they called that column, supporting role. So if it says, like, if it lists us as lead, but then it like lists planning board as who else you might work with, it's like we'd get feedback from them, but we would take the charge on things that say lead for Concom. It doesn't need to get down to the level of a specific commissioner, and we don't need to relay that kind of level of detail to them. They're just looking to see, did we give you guys the correct division of the massive list of tasks that came out of this plan?
This is a
Do
first
we
step.
do we have to tackle all of these and split them up, or
No.
we're picking what we want to focus on?
We're picking what, Leah, tell them I'm wrong. We're picking the ones that we want to lead. And then when we do them, we have control of that, correct?
So my take on where we are with this step is actually even simpler than that. I just think we need to say if there's anything that we don't think is on our list, like maybe the historical one, then we say, we don't feel that this should be on our list. We think it should go to the historical commission or something. If the rest of what remains is listed as us and take the lead on it, we can also weigh in on if we think it is us, but maybe we don't take the lead on it. But we do not need to pick our priorities or timelines or anything like that. We're just solidifying the list as a whole and then telling the Open Space and Rec Committee if we agree with the list they've given us. And then I don't know how much oversight they're going to have going forward from there. They might want to check in periodically, but my interpretation is from there, it becomes our list to do with what we will. And we decide, oh, this year, why don't we try to do this? And then we do it. They might check back in if that committee stays active to see what are you working on and how's it going. But we don't need to give them a plan of this is what we want to pick and this is when we're going to do it. That's kind of left in our trust. Does that help?
Yes, that helps, because this is a daunting list to read.
Yeah.
Again, some of these things are very straightforward, short duration, checking something basically. Even just creation of the Trails Subcommittee via Conservation Commission, that takes time and effort and
yeah, and we gave them feedback on the Trails Committee already. So, and there's things like Sandy said, there's things on there that we've already done or already make progress toward doing, or are an annual recurring something that we already do. So not all of that is reflected here, but they're just looking to firm up whether or not they gave the correct boards and committees and departments the correct list of goals.
Okay. Yes, that helps. Thank you.
That's much easier. Okay. All right. Those of us that can do it, let's try to get something to Leah and put our best foot forward. But I understand we're all got a lot of million different demands on each of our time. So we can understand that. So
Can the Conservation Commission effectively go help recruit people to do these things? Like, is there, once we pick maybe the priorities, or maybe we pick some of these things, are we going to try to recruit other people to assist, or is it on the commission?
I think the first, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish.
No, I'm just rambling. Go ahead, Sandy.
To me, like one of the first things we want to do, like say, let's stick with the Trail Committee. We're going to reach out to, the Land Trust. They already have one. Okay. Why would we reinvent the wheel? Let's see what we can add to that. And can we expand, that to me would be the approach.
Yeah, no redundancy.
I like that. I mean, we're all very busy. We all have a lot on our plates, and, we're volunteering for this. So let's try to be wise about what we take on. So that's my take on it.
Amen. We don't need to vote on anything, do we, Leah?
Nope.
We already
I
did
will-
that for, yeah.
My
ahead.
goal is I'm going to attack this in the next 2 days and get my notes back to you.
Sounds good.
I don't think anyone's going to argue with that approach.
Attack. because that's what it's gonna require, coffee and just,
It's finding that hour to like dive into it and
yeah.
get your arms around it and
Well,
really
this is why I'm
prioritize.
leaving it up on my laptop screen with a sticky note, and it says "Do it."
There you go. There you go. All right. Is anything else, Leah? Are we all done?
That's all I have.
That means we have one thing left to do.
Before we do that, could I ask one question? The
No.
RFP, no. This has been a long meeting. It's not regarding the giant spreadsheet that I've got on my other screen over here. Were the comments that I provided helpful at all for the RFP? Are you still
Yeah.
looking for more information for anyone, or is that pretty well wrapped up?
It is wrapped up and it's going to be live, fully live tomorrow on Project Dog.
Good.
Cool.
So I appreciate the input, and we incorporated a bunch of that, and you'll see it tomorrow.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Sounds good.
Awesome. I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I
Ah.
second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Jonathan,
Yes.
Patrick, quick.
Yes.
And Betsy.
Yes, and my
I'm a
apologies
yes.
for being tardy. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it. Life
Usually
happens.
two.
Yeah. I also am yes. Motion carries. The meeting's closed.